was what it was like in Alfred at some of the worst times that you've seen. So specifically in like the 90s or 2001.
In the late 90s, there was some chaos in the village of Alfred. There seemed to be a lot of group infighting between sects of Alfred State College and Alfred University. And it was very interesting on the weekends. We always would say you always knew if it was going to be a busy night or not if you pulled up the GJs at 2 o'clock and there was 400 people standing on Mill Street. And I guess that's still kind of the same barometer from what I'm hearing now. Between, well, Alex's and GJ's were the two main points. And then, of course, all of the houses, the student housing off campus, there was always a lot of parties and social gatherings and things of that nature back in that day. But things really ramped up in the late 90s where there was some pretty serious issues. And it always seemed to revolve around Alfred University teams and Alfred State College teams. And it was something that spilled over to where we ended up having massive law enforcement responses. We had what we would have termed mini riots, where we had officers being assaulted with bottles. We had people were rocking an ambulance who was there to pick up an injured student. There was a time we all retreated back to the police department and locked ourselves into the police department because we were being overrun basically by students.
All right, and we heard something about a case in 2001 with the Latin Kings. Do you know anything about that?
Yep, I was involved in that. Without naming names, it was there was a drug investigation that revolved around the Latin Kings, and it ended up with a member of the Latin Kings being arrested. He was in possession of a very large amount of ecstasy, which at that time we really hadn't seen too much of that around here.
What would you say has changed for the better in Alfred in recent years?
I would say up until very recently, it seemed as though the students were becoming more responsible. It seemed as they were taking ownership in how things were being conducted off campus. It didn't seem to me in the last 10 years anyway, that we had the types of problems that we've had in the last couple of months in Alfred.
Why are we seeing that increase all of a sudden?
Well, I think you guys made the point that COVID changed a lot of things for a lot of people, and especially with kids that were basically locked down for up to 2 years during the COVID time, and didn't have an opportunity to actually get out and socialize, and this being maybe their first opportunity to do that since then. I think there probably is a very distinct correlation with COVID and what you're seeing today.
But we did have two cases of assault really recently, and we're kind of curious how your or if your department is going to assist.
We've had a request from the village chief, Paul Griffith, to assist when we can with patrols. We do have patrols assigned to assist, so we have deputies that work as special details of police officers that we're going to be assigning periodically over the coming weeks in the village.
So how do you deal with that? I would say flux of extra work or assist. Like
we put it out as overtime details. So when we get a request from a chief asking for extra help, and in this case we see it as a pretty significant public safety issue. I'm sure you've seen the videos on Instagram. I saw the videos on Instagram of what was going on in Alfred, and it's very dangerous. And it's not only dangerous to students; it's dangerous to law enforcement too. So when we get a request from a chief like Paul Griffith, who I've worked with, who I highly respect, that says we need some help, we do whatever we can to provide that.
Oh, that's really good to hear from a student from A-State. So based on your time, working with some of the Alfred State policemen, and even coming to now being a sheriff, what can be done to help students more?
Education, focus on education and prevention, talk about safety and how students can help each other, and how they can be more responsible when they're drinking alcohol and they're off campus and they see these types of things happening. If you see it, say it, report it, that type of thing. Take ownership, as you guys were saying earlier. We can't, police officers, law enforcement, we can't be everywhere all the time, right? So we rely heavily on the students to police themselves in a way, to where they can pay attention to what they see happening, and they can get involved.
So
And
encouraging some good communication.
absolutely, and I think what it comes down to is it's got to be a partnership, right? It's got to be a partnership between law enforcement, the school, and the students, and then you've got community members that have a stake in this too. I think that you're going to find that you've got local residents who are very concerned about what they see going on at night as well. So, in order to make this happen, in order to make it a safer environment for you to go to school and for the people that live there to have a good living experience, I think that everybody's going to have to come together to find some solutions.
It takes a tribe.
Absolutely. Yep, I agree with that.
And this is kind of a more personal question, but with in light of recent things, would you suggest sending your kids here to one of the Alfred State colleges, Alfred State or Alfred U?
My daughter graduated from Alfred State last year. We're very excited that she decided to go there. Uh, Regardless of what you're seeing in the recent weeks in Alfred, it's not really representative of what Alfred is as a community and as a college and university. It's a very family type atmosphere in Alfred. There's not a ton of students. You get to know your professors. You get to know the people that live around you. I formed relationships over there with residents that I still have today when I worked over there. I love the community, and I still wouldn't hesitate in recommending my kids to go there to school. And I'm proud to say my daughter graduated from Alfred State last year.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, and congratulations.